Hello, welcome to AI in Schools, Privacy, Equity and Sustainability. This is the first session of day 2 of the AI ITaP. We're going to be taking a critical approach to using generative AI as a pedagogical tool. My name is Dr. Andrew Joyce-Gibbons. I've over 10 years experience as a researcher in technology enhanced learning. My specialist focus has always been pedagogy and collaborative technology, how we can encourage teachers to better create collaboration environments in the classroom. I've worked in teacher education and education studies departments across the country, including Durham, Bath Spa and the University of the West of England. I've also worked within an international context. Whilst working as a consultant for an international advisory firm, I helped launch an early teacher-focused AI app, and I've done extensive work looking at the potential applications of AI in low and middle income countries. Currently, I've returned to my roots. I started as a primary school teacher in Key Stage 2, and I'm currently a Year 5 teacher in a school in England. If you ask ChatGTP, Copilot, what I look like, I put a little prompt in there to draw a picture. That's what they think I should look like based on those parameters in the prompt. However, this is me. This is what I actually look like. Hello. So in this session, we're going to look in the first video at privacy and its appropriate uses of AI technology given privacy concerns. In the second part, we're going to look at equity and bias and sustainability. There are going to be 3 tasks that you're going to have to upload. They can be found on slides 14, 15 and 17. So AI tools are very good at some things and they're not so great at other things. What they're very good at is analyzing and structuring and writing text. They're very good at finding patterns in data. That's particularly machine learning, and generative AI is very good at taking those patterns and that information and then generating something new from it. They turn prompts that we give them, instructions that we give them, into audio, video, text and images. That's what they're very good at. And there's massive potential. Governments around the world are very excited at the idea that AI can reduce teacher workload, which will help with teacher retention, job satisfaction, and also free up teachers' time so they can do more of what they do best and what they're most effective at, which is working with children. So reducing all of the extraneous tasks, the sludge, reducing the workload for senior managers, streamlining school processes, that sort of thing. However, generative AI prompts or outputs can be inaccurate, they can be inappropriate or biased, they can be taken out of context or used without permission, and they can be out of date quite quickly and unreliable. So it's extremely important that you use your judgment as to whether they fit the needs of your class, whether they in sync with all the other things that you know and your subject knowledge. So it's something that requires a lot of teacher maturity and teacher judgment. From a privacy and protection point of view, generative AI apps store the prompts that you make, and these are then used in training future iterations of the algorithms that they use. Now, that has a number of problems to do with personal copyright. If you're uploading children's work, I mean, that's their work, and shouldn't necessarily be used for profit for another company. Equally, if you are giving away data that could then be used to infer the identity of children, then that is also not okay. And we've got to be very careful of the obligations that teachers and schools have under data protection legislation. So there are certain categories of data that we're going to look at that we've got to be really careful about. And yeah, children's intellectual property. If you take a photo of a piece of children's work, you upload that to a generative AI app that has a text recognition component that then generates feedback. That could save you a lot of time. It could give the child very good feedback. However, you've got to be very careful what's happening to that data, and to what extent that that data is protected and is used consensually. Okay, so as we've said, there's a threat to privacy. This data can be used in future trainings of algorithms, and it's something that teachers and schools have to be aware of, that they may have liabilities, moral and legal. Okay, so personal data, thinking about what we're trying to protect here. It can be specific numbers, email addresses, personally identifiable pieces of information, pupil numbers, school numbers. There's lots of these around, but more broadly, information relating to key personal characteristics of students, relating to their physical, mental health, their genes, their culture, their identity. It could be things like this. We wanted to make a list. Okay, so here's a number of categories of key personal information. In primary schools, which of these do you think are going to be the most relevant? Which are the ones that we're going to have to work hardest to protect? Not saying the others aren't important, they are, but there are some that I've identified, I think, as the ones that are most problematic for me. Pause the video, make a few notes, and then turn it on again and see whether you've got the same ones out of that list that I think are important. Okay, so I highlighted the following. I think that we've really got to work hard to manage these. You may have different ones on your list. I think that that's something that it's just to be aware of. Sorry, the children and your context within that as well. So, what kind of personal and sensitive information could be given away? These are three prompts that I've used, and I can say from my own experience, when I type, I'm sometimes doing it in the context of a class discussion within a lesson. We're using it for reference, we're using it to as part of our discussion. So it may be that you're in a stressful situation, so you've got to be really careful about how you write these things. And we'll look at a prompt that I've tried to anonymize later on. But again, have a look. Think about the list of key categories of personal information which are on the page before, and see what do you think each one of these relates to. Pause the video, have a read, then we'll start in a sec. Okay. So yes, these are the categories that I think that could be at risk. So you've got to be very careful how you prompt these things, and they're all very, very useful. Personalized work giving feedback could be brilliant. It could save teachers a lot of time, and it could be really useful for students and for parents. Dealing with difficult issues around sexuality is something that it can be difficult for the non-specialist. AI potentially could give us support on that, but we have to be very careful how we approach it. And using AI as an interlocutor for a child, somebody who something that they can talk to, and they could take on the role of a child in another country that they want to talk to, could be good, but we've got to be careful how we're using that information if we're asking them to say their name or asking them to say their age in French or Spanish. Yeah? So again, things we've got to be aware of, and if we're using AI, we've got to be clear that that data is going to be used in a responsible way. So there are certain things that we can do. The first is, if you look back to that picture that Copilot did of me, at the very top of the Copilot app, and I used it on a Microsoft computer, there's a little opt-out clause where you can opt out of having your prompts included in their future training. So that's something that you can do, particularly in school, if it's not done as a default. Secondly, this was a prompt that I wrote as part of a PSHE lesson where we were talking about fairness and turn taking and how we interacted with each other, because there'd been a big falling out and we needed to really focus on this. So I wrote a story prompt that looked at these issues. I didn't say year 5, I didn't say key stage 2, I just said understandable by 10-year-old children, and that worked really well. And then later on in the lesson, we rewrote the prompt as a class as part of our discussion, and then saw the output and saw how the story that was generated changed. It was a really effective way of focusing the children and also recording the learning. So in terms of the generative AI tools, Using ones which are specifically designed for education is a very good way of ensuring that privacy will be respected and data will be stored responsibly. These are just 3 of the burgeoning number of tools out there, but they're certainly ones that have caught my eye. And in the second part of today, we'll return to these and look at how they're being used. Teachmate.ai, Oak National Academy, Khan-Migo. Teachmate and Oak National Academy are focused on the English education context for certain. Khan-Migo is organized around an American model, but nevertheless has some potential to generate useful resources and insight. So we've reached the end of the first part of today's session, which is focused on privacy. I hope that's given you a few ideas of what is possible and what the potential challenges that teachers might face are. After this, please pause the video and please click on part 2 when you're ready, so that we can look at bias and sustainability and issues surrounding those. Thanks very much.